Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to share with you a recently created stack menu in React, and I thought it's going to be very good to create workshop out of it because this is a topic that I see a lot of places is needed, and menus are often complicated and they're not done really to the deepest level. So I'm going to tell you what was my issue and then how did I create this component and what are my suggestions and like things I would to consider when I'm doing such things. So in this software, which is a 3D design software, I had a requirement that so when I have a selection, you see like I have two options here temporarily placed. I wanted to have in a way that in the ribbon menu on the top, it would be placed here in between when it's selected. I have an extra action, or maybe even the menu on the tops will be like added or modified. Now, in order to do that, you can add some if else conditions, create custom components and put there. And then like when selection happens, then you go and show it. But it's not really versatile. It's not really future proof. It can't handle more details. And then the code over time becomes spaghetti as you go. So before we start, I'm going to go to my website, torabian.github.io. And if you go to the workshop section and then React architecture workshops, the third item at the moment will maybe change while the time you're watching, like React stack menu. So you can go and check the demo of this, which is here, and we're gonna talk about it in a second. And also you can access the source code from here. It's a part of my website's content, so you can just download this and use it as you want. Let's go to the demo first and then we see what we have added. Now you see I created this menu with the default items from my current 3D design software to just give me an idea. And what has happened is that I have this menu items like home, scene, insert here. And then underneath them, there's element section, complex section, and then like foundation section. I'm gonna go and inspect this and you will see like the whole menu is a UL, like UL and LI structure, and a button on the top, like as the section holder. And then again, inside that is another UL and another LI. Now you see I haven't used any other libraries like CSS styling or anything, and that gives me a very clean markup and like that's all I have to provide in my library, and then the people who are using it will style it appropriately. Um, Now, one important feature of this menu is when you're defining the menu elements, you can add extra menu and remove extra menu. By clicking on the activate extra menu, like this menu has been added at delete, and also even if I wanted to, like I have an insert double item added into an existing menu. Now, how this does happen actually, and that's a very interesting part I want to talk with you. And I'm gonna go to the other and the source and then the React stack menu. Let's go to the index just for a moment. This menu is based on a layer system. So the layer system means you are defining few layers of a menu. And when we are rendering them and showing to the user, we are going to each layer, like window functioning it, merging it with the previous layer, and then we show the final result to the user. Now you have seen how this active menu add layer worked. We have here, let me show you the default layer. So it's called an essential layer. And the essential layer has like a key home inside it, and the home has its own children, so it's recursive. It can go indefinitely recursive. And there is like this insert menu here, like as the third item of this layer. And when I'm adding an extra menu to this, like let's say extra insert menu, and we are targeting the same key insert elements and insert double. So like the second layer, when it comes, it kind of goes on being merged with the previous layer. Now, this is a double level rendering mechanism. One level is to keep the information about layers. The second one is when you're just going to render that. So we are not directly modifying the elements in the menu, rather we are modifying the definition which creates that menu. And it gives us the option to modify it and remove that layer, and the re-render will gonna happen and it's gonna go back to the situation it was. For example, here we have an add layer function and a remove layer function. So when I call the remove layer function, that layer is being removed, and the menu with the current like previous layers, like if I had 5 layers, added 1 layer, and then I removed that layer, will be re-rendered and re-merged. This gives you a lot of options, like you can add, as you see, inside a menu something else, or you can even add some ranking mechanism and say this rank is like higher, modify the elements, add extra rules. It opens your hand extremely to create like very complex menus that might need it in a project like this. Because for example, I want to click on this and then another menu here pops up and I can modify the values right away there. So I'm gonna go a little bit talk about the code itself, how it works, and how did I create this library. One thing is important to know that do not create a new project library. Now I have done this, but I don't have any intention to publish it. This is just a copy. I'm gonna put it here for the tutorial purpose and then just copy it and put it in the EaseUp software and modify it on top of that. The reason for that is it's very hard to maintain, and then you have to go and modify the library and then publish it and then manage it and then make sure it doesn't break the other thing. It just makes your work double, or like very likely double, like 10 more times you have to be focused on this issue. And instead of solving this topic and moving on, you have to maintain now 2 projects. Now I have split this library into a definition section, which contains a definition which is required for this kind of a menu. So this is like a component type which receives some properties, which we might discuss a little bit later on. It's very important. This one is the menu item. So when you're defining a layer, layer is a bit different than the menu. So each layer can have an array of menu items, and the menu items are having children. So layers are not having children. They're like layer on top of each other. Rather, the content in them are having children. The key is very obvious. It's like a unique ID for the layer, for the menu item. So like make sure that's unique across all of the layers. The content is in a string or a component type. This is very important. So if I go to my action center object, you see here I have content is in a string, and what else I could do is, instead of writing content as a string, I could basically, all of them are menu layer, menu items. I can say content is a React object. So now I can have a span and then do whatever I want inside that. So you don't want to limit the user to just putting in a string inside an element. Rather, you want to allow them to customize that, put the elements they want. Now I have used this factory method, which can be very good, and it's more performant rather than like rendering it like this. And like I already lose the option to pass properties on the element later on. This is very important. I see like people create these things and then they just pass a JSX element into a rendered one instead of a factory. And almost always the factory is better unless you are like setting some headings, headers, like typography, very, very basic elements, which you know they will be always rendered. Like here, we don't know they will be always rendered. The component is actually the component of the menu itself. So menu itself has a component, but the content of it is the content object. So if you wanted to change the component itself, then we allow the developer to do that. Of course, there's a meta and you can pass properties to it. When a menu selected, this meta is being given to the caller, and there's a children, obviously, for the sub menus. The layer itself is just having an ID and the menu items. So like this is my layer and I have 50 menus under that. And I'm not going to discuss the context that much here. It's just We can either use this manually. I have given the option to use the stack menu by just using the component and passing things and managing the state by the developer. And also I have provided an option called stack menu managed, which it's a global context, and you can have like multiple menus with different names, and then you will work with those names and those will be shown. Like, so you have a context globally, there's a menu on the top, a sidebar, and menu on the bottom maybe, and then like you have like 5 menus, and then you can directly access them and do things with them. And this is super powerful. Now, the managed one is basically using the stack menu. Make sure such scenarios that this component is pure, like you can use it as is, and then the managed layer is just a data management layer on top of that. One option we have given to the stack menu is the LI component and UL component, like what we render basically for the user. There's like default LI component, default UL component, these components here, you know, like instead of like LI UL, this is like what it is. And what we provided here was like an optionality for the user to change it, you know. So if I provide custom LI, custom UL, it's gonna use that instead of the like default one. And we achieve such optionality via providing like options here. So we can say LI component is what, and then UL component is what. And by default, it's gonna use whatever is provided. Basically, because it's extending this one, so we are here. We are showing this default LI and UL component for starter. Therefore, we are able to extremely customize this thing, and like user doesn't have to go and like all the time pass options to this thing. Like if they are not happy with what it provides, they want a modification, they just go take a copy of that component underneath and then modify that. On trigger is an event I have added that when you're clicking on this elements, let's say this one, that's going to be called. So I'm not sure if it's console logging here. Yeah. So you see like prefabricated BIM selected, this one selected, and undefined is the properties of the meta object. So here, so we have like metadata with that. So which file we want to open, and then there is an extra one. In other menus, we don't have such thing. Perfect so far. This is the menu name and then append class to the parent. One thing I want to show you is when we are creating such menus, I haven't added so much extra classes to this, just rather a depth class. So stack menu UL depth 2 and depth 0, depth 1, depth 2, and so far. Although we could select them by CSS, definitely this one just makes it a bit easier when you're writing CSS to make it look like a bit like easier, obviously, and like just select elements without so much CSS selectors. Now, entire styling we have provided here for this one is a display none. So another important aspect of this menu is all of the elements are being rendered, but they're not visible. That's why like I could make 2 menus next to each other, like these are being rendered without being selected, and I could modify only using CSS to all of them are being visible on the like the same ribbon. Now you can modify this extremely different. You can make this a sidebar out of it. You can make it like hover out of it. And I want to show you how this ribbon menu is working. So it's just a CSS, an extra one, nothing fancy. And I add this ribbon menu, like modified the depth 1 to be like this way, modified scroll bar, modified like depth 0 to be a relative thing. Now I don't want to discuss the CSS part of it that much, but the thing is this parent UL is a relative thing. This one like is a relative container, and then subsequent LI UL items will be position absolute and left and right 0. So it's like it's a full width, and the elements are being shown here. Um, so if I go and remove the ribbon menu class out of it, I think we will see like how it would look like without an extra CSS. So you see like it's just the UL, you're clicking on that, shows the other element, load, save, works, and just by adding this extra CSS, it looks like a ribbon menu. Now, one thing I think to take from this video is how easy it is with a little bit of patience, a lot of code in CSS, like it's not even 50, 60 lines. And I could make that like look like this one. So I didn't have to use like so many JavaScript properties, customization, all those things. Now, if I want to use this, React Stack menu, I will take and copy this and put it into my Isadon project, because I believe a library like this written in a few days is not that mature. That's going to be a very good one that I can publish and then use it. It would just waste my time. I will copy it, paste it there, put the menu items in there, and move on with my ticket. Thank you for watching this video. I think it's an interesting uh, information. Take a look at the compute object, which combines the elements together. It might be a bit tricky to understand, although it's very short, and I think we covered most of the content here. So take care and have a nice day.